Okay, so the first thing we're going to be doing today is going to be going over the real number operations. So essentially what we're going to be doing is working on addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. But you should already know how to do that since you're coming into ninth grade. So what we're going to be working on, just to solidify some of your knowledge that you already have, is we're going to be covering the order of operations. So the order of operations. And some of you may have learned PEMDAS or Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, but I'm just going to remove those. You can use it, but I want you to understand what it actually means. So we have 4 different steps whenever we use order of operations. The first step is to do anything inside of the parentheses. So for example, if you have 2 plus 3, and so if you have 2 times parentheses 2 plus 3, then the first thing you're going to do is what's inside the parentheses. So you're going to have 2 plus 5, or 2 plus 3, which gives you 5. Then, since you just have multiplication, you're going to say 2 times 5 is 10. So your final answer is going to be 10. So, you do the parentheses first. Next, you're going to do anything that has an exponent. So, for example, if you have 3 times 2 with an exponent of 2, then the first thing you're going to do is evaluate the exponent. So in this case, 2 with an exponent of 2 means 2 times 2. So we have 3 times 2 times 2. And then we're just going to multiply everything together. So we have 3 times 2, which gives us 6, and 6 times 2, which gives us 12. So for example, 12 would be our final answer for this one. Next, our third step is we always do multiplication or division. And whenever we do this, we usually work left to right. So we go left to right in our problems. And I want you to know that multiplication can be written in multiple different forms. We can have, for example, 2 times 3. Or we can have 2 parentheses 3. Or we can have 2 with a dot 3. All of those things mean exactly the same thing. So it's 2 multiplied by 3, or 2 times 3. Anyway, okay? So the next thing is division can be written a couple of different ways. So I'm going to write division in red. So we have the first one could be 2 and then the division symbol 3. Or we can have 2 over 3. So a fraction is just division. Okay? If you have any problems with that, let me know and I can try and explain it to you a little further. And the fourth thing that you do will be addition or subtraction. Again, we're going to be working left to right, and there's not really any differences that I can show you between addition and subtraction. You can do either as long as you're following it left to right. Now, what I'm going to do now is a couple of examples so we can work through everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have 3 examples to cover, and this will involve adding and subtracting negative numbers, multiplication, division, parentheses, and later we'll touch on exponents. So for right now, our very first practice problem is -6 parentheses -1 plus 4 parentheses. And over here to the right, I'm going to write the order of operations so we can check it each time. So from here, we're going to do each step individually. So what I'm going to ask you is, do you see any parentheses? And your answer should be yes. So we have -6 parentheses -1 plus 4. So anything in red is what we have to do first. So we have -1 plus 4. So -1 plus 4 gives us a +3. So we have -6 multiplied by a +3. And what is -6 multiplied by 3? Well, your answer should be -18. So again, we checked for parentheses. We did that. There were no exponents, so we skipped that. And then we had multiplication, and we did that. And there was not any addition or subtraction, so we're done. So that means that -18 is our answer. Okay? So for our second practice problem, we have -6 multiplied by -12 divided by -3. We can think of this as more of a fraction multiplication. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a -6 as -6 divided by 1. And now we have 2 fractions being multiplied together. Whenever this happens, we're able to just multiply straight across. So we're going to multiply the 2 tops, and then we're going to multiply the 2 bottoms. So our next step would be, or first, we need to check for order of operations. So do you see any parentheses? No. Do you see any exponents? No. Do you see multiplication or division? Yes. So we're going to be multiplying 2 fractions. That means we're going to multiply the tops together and the bottoms together. So we have -6 times -12 on top, and on bottom we have 1 times -3. Okay? So now let's look at the top first. So -6 multiplied by -12. Since it's a negative multiplied by a negative, we're going to have a positive number. So that means that our answer on top is going to be 72, because 6 times 12 is 72. And then on bottom we have 1 times -3. Since we have a positive multiplied by a negative, we're going to have a negative number. And 1 times 3 is 3. So now we have 72 divided by -3. So we still have multiplication or division, so we're still stuck on that end. So we have to figure out what 72 divided by -3 is. And you can use a calculator or not, either one. But the answer is going to be a negative number because we have a positive divided by a negative. And then 72 divided by 3 gives us 24. And that's our answer for number 2, or our second problem. Because we don't have any addition or subtraction, we don't have to do anything else to it. For our third problem, we have -12 over -2 multiplied by -3. And what we're going to do this time is, instead of thinking of it as 2 fractions being multiplied together, we're going to think of it as a division and then a multiplication. So first, are there any parentheses? No. Are there any exponents? No. Multiplication or division? Yes, so we're going to start there. So moving from left to right, whatever you see, if it's multiplication or division, you can go ahead and do it. So again, moving from left to right. The first thing I see is negative 12 over negative 2. Negative 12 over negative 2. And that's going to be the first thing we're going to do. So I'm going to put that in a box and put a 1 next to it. Then we have the multiplication by negative 3. This is going to be the second thing that we do. So the first one, we have negative 12 divided by negative 2. Well, a negative divided by a negative gives us a positive number. So we know that our answer for negative 12 divided by negative 2 should be positive. And then 12 divided by 2 gives us 6. So we have a positive 6. Now we're just going to pull down what was in that second box. We have the multiplication of negative 3. And we have 6 times negative 3. Well, a positive times a negative gives us a negative. So I know our final answer should be a negative. And then 6 times 3 gives us 18. So our final answer should be negative 18. And that's because we don't have any addition or subtraction to finish off the problem. So for our fourth problem, we see something a little different. We have something called a mixed fraction in our problem. So before we do anything else, what we need to do is change that mixed fraction into an improper fraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle this in red, and I'm going to pull it over to the side. I'm going to show you what you need to do in order to figure out how to change this from a mixed fraction to an improper fraction. So our mixed fraction is 2 1/2. So what we have to do is take the number that's not in the fraction, so in this case the 2, so what we have to do in order to change this from a mixed fraction into an improper fraction is we take the number that's not in the fraction right now, so this big 2 that's outside, and we're going to multiply it by the bottom. So 2 times 2 gives us 4. And then what we have to do is add whatever is on top of the fraction. So in this case we have a 1. So we're going to add 1. And then we're just going to add whatever was on the bottom of the fraction. And by add it, I mean we're going to put it over whatever was on bottom. So 4 plus 1 gives us 5 over 2. So this mixed fraction, 2 1/2, changes into 5 over 2, or 5/2. So our next step here would be to change 2 squared, or to change the 2 1/2 into 5 over 2. And that gives us our first step. Now we can follow order of operations. So do you see any parentheses? No. Do you see any exponents? Yes. So that's the first thing you do. 2 to the power of 2 means you're multiplying 2 times 2. So we finished the exponents. Now we're moving on to multiplication or division. We have some of that. So moving left to right. The only multiplication I see is the 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 gives us 4. And then we're going to add 5/2. Now we're done with the multiplication or division. Finally, we have addition or subtraction. In this case, we do have addition, but you might be thinking, well, how do I add a whole number to a fraction? Well, what we need to do is change that whole number into a fraction. So the way we do that is we rewrite it as 4 divided by 1, and then we're going to add 5 halves to this. And if you're adding or subtracting fractions, so again, this is a side note. If you're adding or subtracting fractions, there's a little method that we do, and it's called the butterfly method. But what we're actually doing is we're finding a common denominator, or we're making the bottoms of the fractions match. So I'm going to use this example to show you the butterfly method. We have 4 over 1 plus 5 over 2. And in order to do this, what we do is we'll take the bottom of the first one and we multiply it by the top of the second one. So what is 1 times 5? Well, you should say 5. Then we're going to take the bottom of the second one and multiply it with the top of the first one. So we have 4 times 2. That gives us 8. Then, whatever operation, whether it be subtraction or addition, will go in between them. So in this case we have addition, so we're going to put addition between them. Then, once we're done with that, we're going to draw the division line. And then we're going to take the two bottoms and multiply them together. So in this case we have 1 times 2, and 1 times 2 gives us 2. And then we're going to simplify a little bit. So since we have addition on top, we can go ahead and add those two things together. So 8 plus 5 gives us 13 over 2. And that is going to be our answer. So what I did here was I did what was inside the box, and I found that our answer should be 13 over 2. So for our fifth practice problem, we have nothing but fractions. So since we don't have any mixed fractions, we can go ahead and start with order of operations. So do you see any parentheses? Yes, that's the first thing we do. So inside of the parentheses we have 2/3 plus 1/6, or 2 over 3 plus 1 over 6. So we're going to use the method that I just showed you, called the butterfly method, to add those two fractions together. So we have the bottom multiplied by the top, so 3 times 1 gives us 3. Then we have the bottom multiplied by the top, so 2 times 6 gives us 12. Gives us 12. We take whatever the symbol is between them, so in this case it's addition, and then we multiply the bottoms, and that becomes our new bottom. So 3 times 6 is 18. And then we have this multiplication of 5 over 3. So before we do anything else, let's go ahead and simplify the first fraction. So we have 3 plus 12 over 18. That can simplify to 15 over 18. And we're still being multiplied by 5 over 3. So, next, back to order of operations. Do you see any exponents? No. Do you see any multiplication or division? Kinda. Or, not kinda, definitely. So we're going to check this. So, for multiplication of fractions, earlier I mentioned that you just multiply straight across. So, we have 15 times 5 over 18 times 3. And like I said earlier, you can use a calculator, it's perfectly fine. But for right now, we're going to have 15 times 5, which is 75, divided by 18 times 3 is 64. And that's where we're going to leave this for right now. So this is going to be our final answer. So for the fifth practice problem, your answer is 75 over 64 because we do not have addition or subtraction. So for our sixth practice problem, we have one that looks a little scarier than normal. So the first thing we look for is, do we have any mixed fractions? And this one we do. So we need to change that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it over to the side, and we're going to change this mixed fraction into an improper fraction. So like I said before, you take the big number, in this case is 3, and you multiply it by the bottom. So what's 3 times 4? That's 12. You add whatever was on top. So in this case we're going to add 3, and the bottom stays the same. So we have over 4. So 12 plus 3 gives us 15, and then we have 15 over 4. And that's going to be our mixed fraction to the improper fraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the 3 3/4 into 15 over 4. Now, whenever we divide by fractions, what we're going to do is we're going to do something called flipping and multiplying. But before we get there, we have to check our order of operations. Do we see any parentheses? Yes. So that's where we're going to start. So we have that 2 divided by 15 over 4. So whenever you divide by a fraction, what you're actually going to do is you're going to change it. So we have 2, and instead of dividing by a fraction, you're going to flip it and multiply. And by flip, I mean you're going to take whatever's on bottom and put it on top, and whatever's on top and put it on bottom. So this 15 over 4 is going to change into 4 over 15. And we're still working inside the parentheses. Now we're going to multiply these two numbers, and I'm going to change the 2 into 2 over 1 so it makes it a little easier. So in order to multiply two fractions, you multiply straight across. So we now have 2 times 4 divided by 1 times 15. And that's still being squared, or the exponent is a 2. So on top we have 2 times 4. That gives us 8. And on bottom we have 1 times 15, which gives us 15. And we have an exponent of 2. So an exponent of 2 means that you're going to take whatever is inside the parentheses, or whatever has the exponent, and you're going to multiply it by itself however many times the exponent is. So in this case, since the exponent is 2, we're going to have 8 over 15 multiplied by 8 over 15. And since this is still order of operations, we just did the exponent, and now we have multiplication. So what's 8 over 15 multiplied by 8 over 15? Well, you should be able to tell me that we're multiplying two fractions, so we're just going to multiply straight across. So we have 8 times 8 over 15 times 15. And that gives us, well, 8 times 8 is 64, and 15 times 15 gives us 225. And that's our final answer for practice problem number 6. If you have any questions regarding this stuff, send me an email, send me a message, do whatever you can to get a hold of me so I can help you work through these a little bit more. Again, what this is called is the operations of real numbers and order of operations, including fractions. Tomorrow, I'm going to upload a worksheet, or it should already be uploaded to Google Classroom. I need this turned in by Friday. And then Wednesday, you're going to have another video this week, and you're going to have a second worksheet to complete by Friday. Other than that, we're finished for today, and you can go on and do whatever you want. But again, I need this worksheet that you're getting tomorrow finished by Friday, and you also have a second worksheet to finish by Friday, and you will receive that on Thursday. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you later.